Pompeo, Fox News contributor and former Secretary of State. Secretary Pompeo, great to have you again on the program. You've been in the Situation Room multiple times. The president met with his national security team yesterday for a while at the White House discussing this potential deal. Still no word on whether he will accept it, if he'll reject it, if we're going to see strikes. What do you think was going on in the Situation Room yesterday?
Aisha, it's great to be back with you. Look, my sense is that he was hearing from the various team that he's built, right? He's hearing out from Secretary Bessent about what's going on economically and the stranglehold we've put on them. He's hearing from the intelligence community about the enormous whooping that we put on the Iranian military, their internal capabilities. And then he's hearing from Secretary Rubio and others about how it is that we can actually deliver a really good outcome. I'm sure, too, Aisha, he's being reminded what the Iranians put in a piece of paper is not worth a hell of a lot. In the end, what will truly matter is Iranian actions. And I think that's what President Trump is probably weighing. What is it that he can do that can confirm that his red line won't be crossed, that Iran will never have the capacity to get back a nuclear weapon, that its ballistic missile program will be diminished even further, and that they'll stop funding terror around the world. Those are the objectives President Trump has clearly laid out. And he recognizes that the regime in its press releases and its statements is fragmented, confused, and on its back foot.
Well, as we wait for the president's decision, Iran is drawing its own red lines. Here is a tweet or a post on X from the Iranian parliament national security leader, doubling down on their red lines. And he writes, Iran will not be pushed back by Trump's rhetoric from its red lines, the right to enrich uranium, possession of enriched uranium, authority over the Strait of Hormuz, and the removal of sanctions. I mean, these are all things that the U.S. is never going to allow. These are our red lines. We would never, ever let them hold on to the enriched uranium or have the ability to toll the Strait of Hormuz. What do you think of this idea of a 60-day ceasefire, potentially getting us to a long-lasting nuclear deal? Or do you think that Iran is sort of trying to outweight the president? As the president himself has said, he believes that the Iranians might be trying to outweight him because they understand the politics of this country and the midterms around the corner.
Yeah, I think President Trump gets the joke, right? The Iranians are clearly tapping us along, trying to play for time. There's no doubt about that. Look, the statement they put out, by the way, odd, they put it out on X that is only external. There's nobody that can get access to X inside of the country. But there's clearly the case that this particular leader, whether that particular leader actually has any authority speaking on behalf of the Iranian regime or not, is difficult to know. But this particular leader has laid out a set of things that are unacceptable. And if that is, in fact, the Iranian position, I'm very confident President Trump will go back to kinetic action. There'll be left no option. He's made clear what we need to achieve. None of the things that they laid out in that achieve any of the objectives of the United States of America.
I'm also curious what you think about Oman's role in all of this. They've sort of crept back up into the conversation. They were originally the mediators when we were talking to Iran, weeks ago, and now they've kind of popped back up in terms of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran sort of indicating that potentially Oman would help them control the Strait of Hormuz. And here's what the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said about that this week. Here's his warning to Oman.
I had a call with the Omani ambassador this morning, and he assured me that there were no plans for tolling the strait. I told him that this was a non-starter, and he did not want to risk either the Omani individuals or Omani financial institutions getting sanctioned.
Senator Tom Cotton, I think, also brought up the idea of sanctioning any country, Gulf ally that participates in tolling the Strait of Hormuz. Is there any chance, could you see Oman or any other Gulf nation doing that?
Actually, it seems implausible to me. I spent a lot of time in Oman, in Muscat, the capital. I dealt with the Omanis. I dealt with the Sultan that was the previous Sultan, the current one I met as well. It seems to me they are trying to do what they've done for a long time, is try to play somewhere in the middle between Iran and the West. Right? They are geographically sitting between Yemen and the Strait and Iran, a difficult place for a small country without a significant military. So in some ways they're the victim, but they need to be very careful. If they get too close to the Iranian regime and cross an American red line, they too will face the wrath of the United States and the wrath of their Gulf Arab partners and friends.
You said the word careful, and I agree. It's such a sensitive moment that we're in right now as we wait for the president's decision, because there are some people in the Middle East and perhaps Israel that might be worried that all of this is sort of giving Iran, legitimizing this regime's diplomatic role in the region, a role that they never really used to have. How do you see that?
Yes, I can't imagine President Trump allowing that to happen. Look, Americans shouldn't tire of winning, right? President Trump's talked about that. We should achieve and continue down the path to achieve the very victory that President Trump has laid the foundations for. We've put an enormous amount of pain on their economy. We've taken down their ballistic missile capabilities. Hamas and Hezbollah are on their back foot as well. We need to continue this effort to make sure that all the hard work and the loss of American lives that has happened is worthy of the outcome. And that means an Iranian regime that no longer threatens the region, no longer threatens Israel, and is protected. It is not protected by a regime that has caused so much trouble in the world for so many decades, Aisha.
Okay. Sounds like we might also be waiting for the Ayatollah to make a decision, and maybe that hasn't happened yet. Secretary Mike Pompeo, thank you so much. Always great insight and great to see you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.